Hey, what's going on, guys? Mike here, back at the new shrimp tank that we set up a couple weeks ago. Everything's looking pretty good, but it definitely needs some maintenance. So we're gonna go ahead and do a little update on the tank, talk about what's been going on in it throughout this first couple of weeks, and do a little bit of much needed maintenance. Right away, the first thing you notice is that we have a bunch of algae here on the glass. I haven't touched the front panel this entire time. So since you guys saw it last in the previous update, I haven't done any work to the glass. So, this is just some typical stuff that'll happen to pretty much any aquarium. It doesn't mean that it's unbalanced or there's any problems with it. You're gonna know if there are problems in the tank that you're gonna see on your plants or the organisms you have in there, but just some algae on the glass here isn't a sign of anything negative. But let's go ahead and clean that up with a razor blade. There we go, that looks a lot cleaner. I wish I could just snap my fingers and my front glass would be clean every time, especially over on my 125. But anyway, let's continue talking about what's going on here in this tank. So the plants, all of them are doing really well. First thing you'll notice is this plant up here. This is some Rotala that is just floating up here. It's some stuff that I transformed out in the lab, and I don't know if I'm gonna put it in here. I don't know if I have the room. I was thinking maybe behind this rock, but as you can see, there's really not any room back there. We just have some moss that's wedged back there right now, but I don't know, I'll think about it as I'm cleaning the tank, whether or not I can make that happen. You can see that it's been here for a long time, all the roots just growing straight down. The other big thing that you'll notice, also up at the top, is that the hair grass has just grown like crazy. When we planted this, we, put a few clumps back here, and the top was just, barely over this portion of the rock. And as you can tell, it has grown a tremendous amount in just the last 2 weeks. And it even looks like a piece has managed to float its way over here into the front, and it's trying to take root here. So I don't know what I want to do. If I want to cut that all back, I don't hate the look of it, and I almost kind of like it. The shrimp really love it. They spend a lot of time back here, up on the, kind of up on the top near the surface of the water. And so I don't know, another thing that I'm going to think about while we're doing this. The moss in the tank is also looking really good. The Christmas moss that we put over here and over here, starting to send out, some new buds and some new lateral growths. The Java moss in the back, and I think we put some over here as well, is also doing really good. Remember the AR that we put in here, and I wasn't sure if it was AR Mini or if it was the regular AR that can get really big and tall and wouldn't be a good placement. I'm pretty much confident that this is regular AR that will get really big. You can see it's grown a lot. The leaves on this thing, on all of these stems, are pretty dang big, and in the next couple of weeks, this plant is really going to take off. So I do need to make a decision whether or not I want to pull these out or just kind of see what happens. I think I'm leaning towards just seeing what happens because I like the coloration here, and I don't know, I'm kind of just curious to see how it's going to continue to do in this tank. Another thing is that these were tissue culture, and so tissue culture plants often take a lot longer to really get situated and grow well, at least for me. Plants like the AR and other stem plants, crypts, they aren't going to have as hard of a time as, say, things like dwarf baby tears and Monte Carlo and other common tissue culture plants that often require doing a dry start method to really get them going, but still taking their time. But I think in the next couple weeks, those plants are really going to shoot up tall. Another plant that's doing really well is the Anubius Petite. Everything's looking really good. There's not, really hardly any algae growing on the leaves. That's a common thing for these slow-growing plants to get, is they typically get, or they can get some blackbeard algae on them if you don't have good circulation and, a range of other things in your aquarium. But everything's looking pretty good. A few of them, experience the Anubius Rot that is all too common. You get a couple plants where the rhizome just rots away. It's typical, it happens, it doesn't happen to every plant, and based on my experience, it isn't a contagious thing. It's just something that happens on a plant-by-plant basis. The S. repens is also doing really well, starting to get some new growths on pretty much all of the plants in here. They're fanning out nicely, and I think this is going to end up being a really nice carpet. They seem to be enjoying the light, and for me at least, S. repens is really touchy when it comes to light. Give it too much, it doesn't like it. Don't give it enough, it gets really leggy. But for whatever reason, they seem to be doing really well with the 24/7. And I will say the 24/7, I have been using it in 24/7 mode like I said I would, and I'm really pleased with the results so far. I was a little skeptical, but it's really cool to just hang out here at different times and have the lighting look different. And you can see we're running CO2 right now because we're in the middle of the day. When the light fixture ramps down, I think around 6 o'clock, that's when the CO2 shuts off. And I will mention that the CO2 comes on right when we reach noon or whenever the highlight begins. The boost is also doing really good. Hasn't really grown much, but boost doesn't really grow much at all, honestly. Super slow growing plant, even more so than Anubius. But yeah, the tank needs to have my hand get put in it, and I need to do a little bit of work in here, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and do that and make some decisions whether or not we want to chop all this back. So as you just saw, I did end up cutting that hair grass back a ton. You can see over here, we have quite a bit of it, and we could replant that actually if we wanted to, but we don't really have any more space for it unless I decided to swap the moss out and do hair grass over on that side. But I don't even think I'm gonna do the Rotala over there, just because, I don't know, I kind of like the look of it, not having plants that, grow up to the top. I don't know, I think it sort of helps you to, have more of a focal point on the mountain, whereas if you had a bunch of plants back here that were turning red, that would sort of take all your attention away from the other cool features that I like in this tank. So that is pretty much all I'm gonna do plant cutting wise. I could go in here and trim a little bit of the moss if I wanted to, but I think I'm gonna let it grow out a little bit longer, a couple more weeks, and then do a trim on that. Side note, if you're gonna be doing a bunch of trimming, it helps to turn your filter off before you start doing that. Of course, I forgot to do that while I just filmed it. It happens, guys. That can just help prevent your trimmings from blowing back down into your plants and causing more of a mess, making it easier to clean up, basically. That's what happened with me. A bunch of the trimmings went down into the hair grass and just kind of made it a little bit more difficult. But anyway, the last thing we need to do really is just do a 50% water change, I think. And then we'll talk a little bit about these shrimps, guys. All right, so we got the tank filled back up. We got dechlorinator in there. We got our filter back on. We have our heater back on. Everything, check, check, check. We're done. And you know what, guys? While I was doing all that, making sure that everything was back going, I finally noticed that there are some baby shrimp in here. So let's see if we can find one. There's one right there. Let's see if we can get a focus. Where'd he go? Where did he go? There's a bunch of them in here. There's one. There's a couple. I don't know if I'll be able to get a focus on that guy, but we got some breeding. When I got these orange Neos from Corey, a few of the females had eggs, and so that's pretty much a surefire thing. You're gonna have some babies, and sure enough, a couple weeks later, we got some babies. So there's another one floating around there. I haven't spent a lot of time in front of this tank. Obviously, it was, needed some maintenance. I haven't been out here a ton, but I'm getting ready to actually set up another tank in here. But before, I don't want to get into that. Let's talk about these Neos though. So we got them breeding, didn't do anything special to have that happen. That's typical. They're super easy shrimp to keep, super easy shrimp to breed, and they're just gonna go crazy in this tank. Fingers crossed. All I do is feed them a couple sinking pellets. I do have some shrimp cuisine somewhere, but the last week or so I've been just giving them some sinking wafers. This is some Hikari stuff. And I just give them, 2 or 3 pellets like every other day. And, there's not a lot of shrimp in here. I got 12 of them, and who knows how many I have now, but they're so small, they don't need a ton of food. There's other sources of food in here and all the moss and stuff. So I'm probably giving them too many pellets, but, not a lot of food needs to go into this tank to sustain the population as it is now. And guys, these are a shrimp that doesn't need a super warm temperature. And in fact, the warmer the temperature of your tank, say it's up to 82 in here, you're gonna decrease the lifespan of your shrimp dramatically. So this is a tank that can be, 72 degrees and be just fine. And right now we're getting into, the beginning of the summer. It's coming up. and it's getting hotter, so we're definitely going to be taking the heater out of here. It's not necessary for that period of time, being the summer. And you know, if you're living in a place where it gets really hot, that can be an issue, especially if you're keeping these little neocaridinae. But you know, luckily for me, I don't really have to worry about it too much. While I was doing some of the maintenance, you may have seen me pick out a little bit of hair algae that was growing in the moss. There was a little pocket back there, and you know, there was a little bit over here, I think, and that's really typical moss. You know, it attracts particles. A lot of, you know, organic material will fall on it and get trapped in it, and that's a great place for algae to take advantage of. And so, you know, if you're using moss, maybe you're new to using moss in your aquarium, that's something that will pop up from time to time. Luckily for me, there was just a few pieces I could go in with 2 hands and pull it out and not really disturb the moss too much. But, you know, these are typical things that happen to an aquarium, you know, in the first few weeks of setting up. You know, even a planted tank that you load with plants, you can still have little issues. My advice is to just try and nip it in the bud as soon as it pops up. And doing that, you know, you're really going to save yourself a lot of pain and agony later when you have, you know, a total infestation of algae or, you know, whatever is going on in your tank. Nip it in the bud. You got a bunch of dying leaves on plants, get rid of those leaves, address the issue, maybe consider using, you know, an all-in-one fertilizer or something, but just start doing something sooner than later, and that'll help you out tremendously. So anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today and doing some maintenance over on the shrimp tank. I think it enjoyed it. The shrimp definitely did. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. I try and make videos, you know, at least once a week, but I'll try my best to get back into doing 3 a week. I know a lot of you guys appreciated that, and I like doing it. So thanks so much for watching one more time, guys. Don't forget to check the link down in the description for AquaPro's t-shirts. Thanks so much for buying those, guys. It makes a huge difference. And as always, we'll see you next time.